Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Wednesday, May 9th, 2018. Let's take a look at our solar wind conditions. Right now, the solar wind speeds have declined to 563.1 kilometers per second with a density of 6.2, so still high solar winds at this time. Our sun today has two sunspot regions, but both of them have stable magnetic fields that pose little threat to any solar flares. The AR2709 and AR2708 that is Earth-facing. Sunspot number 25. Taking a look at the KP indices, we did reach a 4 today, and right now we're sitting at a 4, so not quite yet storm conditions, but there is a slight chance for a geomagnetic storm as SPACEWEATHER.com reports. Yes, May 9th is dropping to 30%, and on the 10th, we will see it almost move completely out of picture. So today is the last day for the high solar wind stream as we take a look at the SDO in motion, and we see our star with that sunspot that's newly acquainted with us, AR2709. As you see, it does have a very stable magnetic field and does not pose any threats for solar flares. Also wanted to mention as well, we do not see any new coronal holes forming as well. So all is well on the sun. It's quiet, even though we do have a couple of active regions, still pose no to little threat at all. And taking a look at the TSI readings, today they dropped down a full tenth of a point on the values. We're sitting at 1360.63, and that is for May 1st, 2018. Now, yesterday's reading, we had a reading of 1360.73, which was now, obviously, we are down a tenth of the value. And let's get into some articles. I wanted to read this really quick. Trump's pick for top UN migration job gave misleading answers on tweets critical of climate change. Now, this is what CNN is saying. Ken Isaacs, the Trump administration's nominee, had to lead the United Nations Migration Agency, told reporters Friday that he believes in climate change and said a tweet questioning it was taken out of context. Now, what he did say is that he didn't agree with the man-made global warming that Al Gore speaks of. And this is a common situation for the Trump administration. Mike Pompeo, there we go. Mike Pompeo is the new Secretary of State. He thinks man-made global warming is hogwash. The new EPA director, Scott Pruitt, wants to make science available for everyone to see before they make laws and regulations. And now we have a guy who's going to be our top guy at the UN for migration job. Again, another top person in the administration that does not believe in this man-made global warming. So I really think we're on the verge here, hopefully very close to seeing some real action, people actually doing some real prep now for global cooling. And let's keep it on the Trump administration because Nikki Haley also says no to UN Global Pact for the Environment. Now, this came out today. A proposal bringing international environment law under one legally binding treaty at the United Nations will be up for a preliminary vote later this week at the UN. Now, UN Ambassador Nikki Haley tells Fox News in a statement that the U.S. won't support the measure. The Global Pact for the Environment has the backing of French President, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and is being sponsored by France at the world body. It seeks to consolidate what it calls fragment nature of environmental law and codify it, make it accessible to all citizens. A statement to Fox News, Haley said that when the international bodies attempt to force America into vague environmental commitments, it's a sure sign that America's citizens and businesses will get stuck paying a large bill without getting large benefits. The proposed global compact is not in our interest and we oppose it. Now, again, the reason why that the Trump administration and Nikki Haley, who is a Republican senator now at the top of the UN for us, and I think this is a solid pick. She's been very firm, a lot like Sarah Sanders, the press secretary. But I think this is a good sign for people who actually follow real science and want the truth about the climate getting out there, and to see the top people that are in the Trump administration. Now, this is number 4, Haley, is the fourth person in his administration that doesn't go along with this man-made global warming stuff. So this is definitely a heading in the right direction for our country when our leader actually recognizes that this taxing that's been happening to American citizens, all these treaties, you know, they don't benefit us. We shell out the money every year, and yet we don't get any results because the things that we're being told about global warming is false. So I'm just glad to see that we have an administration who have people that are like-minded, who want to get the science out about this, and not just a former president wannabe who thinks he knows science. Go ahead and check out what's up with that. Links are in the description, guys. Claim powerful hurricanes strengthen faster now than 30 years ago. Hurricanes that intensify rapidly, a characteristic of almost all powerful hurricanes, do so more strongly and quickly now than they did 30 years ago. According to a study published recently in Geophysical Research Letters, a journal of the American Geophysical Union. While many factors are at play, the chief driver is a natural phenomenon that affects the temperature of the waters in the Atlantic, where hurricanes are powering up. According to the science at the U.S. Department of Energy's Pacific Northwest National Labor Laboratory and National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Why don't they just put NOAA in here? I mean, my good U.S. Department of Energy Pacific Northwest National Laboratory and the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. Because I guess they just don't want people reading their stuff live.
Alphabet soup.
Man, they found that a climate cycle known as the AMO is central to the increasing intensification of hurricanes, broadly affecting the conditions like sea temperature that are known to influence hurricanes. Stronger hurricanes in a day's time. Last year, a lineup of powerful storms, Harvey, Irma, Jose, and Maria, spurred the scientists to take a close look at rapid intensification process. This occurs when the maximum wind speed of the hurricane goes up by at least 25 knots within 24 hours. It's a rite passage for nearly all hurricanes, major, including the big four we had in 2017. Link is in the description. The paper goes on to talk about the oscillations here, the AMO, and just a very good article, once again, by What's Up With That, Anthony Watts. And one more from him as well. Study, pace of new climate legislation has slowed significantly. Warmest fret could be a sign for concern. And this is why I kind of brought up these first few stories with people that are jumping off of these climate change treaties that are being signed all over the place, talking about reducing greenhouse or CO2 in the atmosphere. There's a lot more at play here. So from Let's Call It the Pause Department, which this is why I love Anthony Watts, from Let's Call It the Pause Department, while the number of climate laws and policies worldwide has increased dramatically over the past 20 years, from just 72 in 1997 to 1,500, the pace of passing new legislation has recently slowed, according to a new study. From 2009 to 2015, between 100 and 143 climate change laws were passed globally every year. That number dipped to 64 in 2016 and just 36 in 17, folks. So again, this is a good sign that we are finally getting some smart people, leaders in our country, who are trying to cut the slack out here and get rid of these unnecessary taxation that we get for CO2 and whatever else that has to go with man-made global warming. It's starting to fall apart, folks, finally. I think we are starting to get a little bit of steam ahead of us here. This administration, once they get to the point where they can really focus more on this, I know they're working behind the scenes right now. There's a couple other topics that are making the headlines right now, like Iran and all that stuff, and North Korea. But I do believe that we are going to see some major research and new studies being done during the Trump administration to get the answers about what's really going on with our climate. And they're going to look at the cycles. It's going to point back to all the cycles, not just the ocean, but our solar cycles as well. Strong 6.2 earthquake hits Hindu Kush region of Afghanistan. According to the USGS, the epicenter was located about 17 miles east-northeast of Shakaran. Now, there are 80,000 people living within this earthquake, and this was a 6.2, but it was in a very rural mountainous area. and only about 102,000 people felt weak shaking. Around 3,000 felt light, and 0 have felt moderate, strong, or very strong. So again, this was a rural earthquake. However, it was a 6.2. There is no major damage yet reported. Some likelihood that there are some structural damage, but it's just too early right now in the game to find out for sure. Again, no injuries or no deaths connected with this, and the link will be in the description as well. And one more earthquake. This one in the PNG area. Once again, a strong and shallow earthquake registered by the USGS hit 6.0 magnitude near the coast of New Britain, Papua New Guinea. This happened today, at local time at 17:57 UTC actually, and the depth of this earthquake was 6.2 miles. Again, some 28,000 people are estimated to feel light shaking, and about 776,000 people also felt weak shaking as well. I'm sorry, that's 1,776,000. There is no tsunami warnings or anything like that. Actually, there is no risk of anything at this point. Again, the link is in the description. Thanks to watchers for all the great information. Nothing more than a light shaking. Nobody even felt any moderate. So even though these were 6.1 or 6.2 and 6.0, nobody felt any really devastating shaking today at all. And taking a look here, we have a severe sandstorm once again hitting Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar. Again, not much news. This happens all the time in the desert, but normally not as close as these either. Severe sandstorm swept over large parts of Saudi Arabia and Qatar on May 9th. The storm dropped visibility to 0. We have some infrared pictures as well. Take a look at this video real fast. A couple seconds here. That is not pollen. And no, that's not iron oxide either, folks. That's desert sand. I know we had some issues this year where we had orange snow, and we had some folks who thought that was iron oxide. That's what happens when the particles from sand get in the atmosphere and turn everything orange. Again, the link is in the description. All right, so we got a couple things to talk about tonight. First one is Invest 90 forms in the Eastern Pacific, may become a first tropical season cyclone of 2018. This is not the same storm that we mentioned the other day. The Hurricane Center gives it a 70% chance of becoming a tropical cyclone over the next 48 hours. If this comes true, the storm will almost form exactly 1 year after record early Eastern Pacific tropical storm Adrian formed. The Eastern Pacific storm runs through from May 15th till November 30th. And in a special tropical weather outlook issued today at 7:15, like I said, they indicate showers and thunderstorms associated with Invest 90E, a broad area of low pressure located more than 1,600 kilometers southwest of the southern tip of the Baja California Peninsula. Does not look like it's anything huge right now, although recent satellite-derived surface wind indicate winds of 30 to 35 miles an hour were occurring on the northwest side of the disturbance. The low-level circulation remains elongated. However, a slight increase in the amount of and organization of the thunderstorm activity and an improvement in the surface wind field would result in the formation of tropical depression later today while the system moves northwestward around 16 kilometers per hour or 10 miles per hour. Again, we'll keep our eyes on this storm. It's still early, but it is still possible to see storms form, especially when the tropical cyclone season starts at May 15th in the Pacific. Experts predicting damaging spring floods in Norway, and this kind of resonates to what's going on in Montana as well. Potential flooding has been compared to the famous July 1995 floods in eastern Norway, which itself was the worst flood in the region since the 18th century. That's pretty severe. Sudden melting of snow during warmer weather caused the 1995 flood, which is estimated to have cost Norway 2 billion kroner. Similar conditions in 2018 were predicted by meteorologists as early as March this year. There is every reason to be wary of the situation, which is like the one in 1995, with a lot of snow in the mountains and a long cold spell. If it suddenly gets warm with a lot of rain, conditions are optimal for a similar spring flood. Water levels in several rivers in eastern Norway are now reported to be on the rise as a result of a warm spring weather. There's a lot of snow melting caused by daytime high temperatures and levels of precipitation that are expected in the coming days that increase risk of flooding in eastern Norway once again. We will keep you up to date on this. Again, the link will be in the description for this. Flying right along here, folks. Tornado with winds of 100 miles an hour touched down in the Finger Lakes Weather Service. Now, this was from May 8th, but this is talking about the storm that we had last Thursday. They are now confirming it was a tornado, and I thought I'd mention this because Syracuse, New York doesn't really see a lot of tornadoes, but a tornado with maximum winds of 100 miles an hour touched down last week in Pinyon. The National Weather Service did confirm that today. After a day-long investigation, the Weather Service determined the tornado tore through Yates County Village about 8:20 p.m. on Thursday. No one was killed or injured. The tornado hit a barn which collapsed on East Swamp Road and tossed the debris on neighboring farm fields. The tornado's path was about a mile long and it lasted 2 minutes. Along the path of the tornado took down several trees which fell in different directions, the report says. The tornado continued eastward on Volk Road, where it blew down a fence and another tree before lifting. The tornado was rated as an EF1, the second lowest of 6 enhanced Fujita scale categories of tornadoes. So nothing major, but it is a tornado. And of course, we've got more rain on the way for Syracuse and western New York as well. And they're talking about a possibility some areas could see up to 2 inches of rain. If you look in this purple area right here, which we live in Buffalo, so it looks like we are scheduled to see about 1.5 inches of rain. In areas just south towns of Buffalo, we'll see 1 2/4 inches. Some areas may even see as much as 2 inches of rain over the weekend here in New York. So not a fun forecast. I know we're not looking for it. It seems like every time we get 1/4 inch of rain or more, we get floods. Close that. And here's everything we know so far about the volcanic eruptions in Hawaii. Hundreds of residents on the island are living in devastating limbo as freshly cracked fissures on the Kilauea volcano continue to erupt with lava, claiming homes and displacing families. It's overtaken more than 100 acres, which we read that last night. A lot of this really is coming down to the last update I got, 13 and 14 were the last two to open up, unless that's changed in the last few hours. I know the biggest concern right now in Kilauea is that the activity had sort of settled down, but with lava flow coming out of 13, that is the one that they're watching the most because that could cut off a lot of the major roadways to certain parts of the island. So this thing is not over by any means, and we are still going to have to be very patient and just keep an eye on this in the time being. Nothing serious right now, but still, lava flow expected to come out of these fissures. Some of these scientists are saying for possibly months. So at first we heard weeks, and now it's a possibility to see this action going on for months. I know it probably seems like we just started, Mari, but how's everybody doing in the chat tonight?
Oh, excellent. We just love you guys in the chat. I'd like to thank for God and Country for doing a super chat. And they say, Jake, I'd like to, well, I enjoy your info and would like some information on the Florida Panhandle. You got to excuse me because I can't read. I'm too tired.
That's okay.
Too tired.
Long day, guys. Long day. Florida Panhandle. Well, that's what we're getting ready to do right now. We're going to take a look at some weather in the lower 48. And this is the forecast. And it's been, other than the central part of the country with some showers, it's been relatively quiet as far as rain and storms go. But we do see the chances of rain picking up more tomorrow. And unfortunately for folks us up here in the northeast part, we are going to see a cold front come back in. Today we reached a high of 83 degrees in Buffalo. We are slated for a high of 61 tomorrow. So a 20-degree drop in just 24 hours. But we start to see some action here on Friday. A low pressure system forming over the heartland of the United States. Nebraska, mainly you're going to see the heaviest rain in the beginning, but then it'll go back into northern Iowa, parts of Minnesota, into Wisconsin. That's getting the rain right now. And as we get to the weekend, we start to get a little soggier in the east, especially in the Great Lakes, northern Ohio, Pennsylvania. You'll see some rain showers. But here we go. We got one of these rain bands that expand all the way back to Oregon and Washington. And as we move through towards Mother's Day, unfortunately, it looks like New York is a soaker. In fact, we could definitely get that 2 inches of rain just by looking at these 2 waves of rain that we have coming in on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There looks like there may be a slight break for western New York, but I'm not going to hold my breath. It does look like a washout here in the Northeast for us anyway. And then as we move into early, now let's take a look before I go any further. For the gentleman that wanted to know about the panhandle of Florida, right now, you're going to stay dry and pleasant for the remainder of this week. It's what we got coming in the future next week that I'm concerned about. And as you see right now, by Sunday, we start to see some of that tropical moisture trying to work its way up into the panhandle. And by Monday, May 14th, finally, we start to see some scattered showers throughout the panhandle and the lower half of Florida. And that's when our storms kind of start to get their acts together right here on the 15th, Tuesday. We see more rain in the east, more rain in the south. Texas, thank God, you're getting some rain in the east. You guys need it really bad. So do you too in New Mexico and Arizona. Unfortunately, it's not your turn yet. And as we go through the forecast into Tuesday, and now we get into midweek next week, and that's where we see a lot of moisture starting to build up, and it just turns into a giant mess after Thursday, folks. GFS is still calling for huge amounts of rain to scatter across the country. The Northeast, parts of the Midwest, into the Northern Plains. That was all throughout the South, but they have backed off of that a little bit. But the South still gets their share by the end of the weekend and the beginning of the following week. So we're still far away out, but we've got plenty of moisture coming in the second half of this month. And boy, look at that storm. Now, I want to bring everybody's attention down here to the Gulf area because there seems to be some confusion about some storms that are coming in. And I wanted to talk about, and this is still way too far to really be talking about, but there's nothing wrong with being a little bit prepared here. So take a look at my cursor right here, folks. 1007. It's crossing over Central America, and this thing kind of just plants itself right here on the 20th of May. This little low pressure system right here. Let me move this up a little bit. That's better. So we got Guatemala, Belize, the southern tip of Mexico. This storm is going to sit here from Sunday, all day Sunday, and it's Tuesday, folks. This low pressure system is still sitting there. Wednesday, Thursday, this low pressure system is still sitting there. And at the end of the model, it shows some very weak movement to the east, ever so slightly. Now, meanwhile, we mentioned this yesterday.
The dog's pissed at our neighbors. I'm going to take care of that.
Yesterday, we talked about how this low-pressure system near Guatemala was spit out another low-pressure system. And if you look right in this area right here, folks, you'll see what I'm talking about as I go into the next frame. It's starting to get a little bit more intense rain right there, and then boom. That's where it starts to get its act a little bit. But this shouldn't hit land just by looking at this. There it is, the full low-pressure system. So right now, the GFS has this thing going off into the Atlantic Ocean, but my biggest concern, as far as the tropics go, early going on, is this region right here, Guatemala, Belize. This storm makes its way onto the Atlantic side starting on Friday, May 18th. And from May 18th, it sits and hovers. And this goes to the 24th. 6 days. Now, this is out sometime. This starts on the 18th. So we still have, today's the 9th. This is 9 days out. A lot can change. But I can tell you something right now. If this storm, this low pressure system is sitting there churning for 6 days, and we all remember what Harvey did to Houston in 3 days, this could be some catastrophic flooding in this region of the world for sure. Guatemala, Belize. These are areas that, yes, they do see some moisture in the tropics later in the year, but this, to me, is one way to kick off the season right here. Now, a lot of folks are also saying, well, we've got to have temperatures just right in the Gulf, and I'm going to see if I can get that. It will not give me that. Well, poop. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll move this back to the continental U.S. We'll do the temperature here. Now, I don't know. Maybe I should look at the ocean water temperature as well, just because surface temps. Because, see, we see surface temps right now in the upper 70s, low 80s. Technically, this storm that we're looking at, that's right here in my little cursor with a, not there. This storm right here where you see my cursor down here at the bottom, it's possible that the waters could be warm enough at that point in time. Now, these are just surface temps, so I'll have to do a little bit more research. But like I said, folks, we're 9 days out. Actually, this storm gets its act together a couple days before that. But the concern I have is it's going to sit there and churn, and maybe the waters aren't warm enough now. But who knows, if this storm continues to move east and just happens to track into the Gulf, you know, by late May, by early June, who's to say what the temperature is going to be, how fast this storm falls apart or intensifies. So right now, I hope it's just a tropical depression or just a tropical storm, a low-grade one, because to see that low-pressure system sit there for 6 days in a row, it could be bad. We could be way off right now here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel, but we're not experts by any means. But after what we saw last year, we try to make a decent guess for you this far out anyway. We can't really confirm anything until probably about 6 days out, 5 days out. Then you start to get a better picture of what's going on. But for right now, I say that we just get prepared and just be ready for this, because it could go up into the Gulf. It could go out into the Atlantic, just like this little the morph storm that it made. That shot out to the Atlantic Ocean. So again, it's something we'll keep watching. It's early now, you know, who's to say it could fall apart, but very concerning to see it just kind of sit in one area. And I'm going to show it one more time because I just, you know, I'm that kind of a weather geek. I want to back it up. I mean, we see this storm really become an official low right in this time frame. So that is May 17th. And it takes a little bit of motion, but by Friday, the 18th, she's sitting right there at Guatemala, Belize, tip of southern Mexico, and does not move. Stays put. Slight movement to the east by the 24th. So we will keep an eye on this, folks. Right now, that Invest 90 does not look like it's going to harm any kind of land at this point. But this is the storm that I'm watching, and it could be our first damaging hurricane of the season. Now, right now, it's just a low-pressure system. There's not really any indication that this is going to be a hurricane, but definitely could be a tropical storm, no doubt. Mart, is there anything else I need to add before we head out of here tonight?
I just want to thank all the people in the chat. Excellent conversations from all of you. Nothing specific, just a thank you. Genuinely, just love you guys to bits.
Yeah, we appreciate you tuning in late. I do coach baseball and had a little longer practice tonight. Our first game is next week, and I had to get a couple guys worked out at pitching tonight. So do apologize for being a little late. The rest of the week we should be good, I'm pretty sure about. So no more ball practice till Saturday. That's in the middle of the day. But anyway, we really do appreciate you guys tuning in, and we hope you got something out of the video tonight. Please like and share, and we will talk soon.